One of the things that disappointed me a lot when it came to Days of Ruin was how few COs there were in the base game. We only got 12 to choose from, which was a big step down from the 27 COs we had in Dual Strike. However, I will say this about Days of Ruin. Each individual CO is a lot more creative from a design standpoint, and they are a lot more memorable. One such CO that I was very fond of when I played through the Days of Ruin campaign was Waylon. I think everyone loved this guy. He's just such a memorable character. He's so over-the-top evil, and you can't just help but like the guy because he just revels in it. He has some of the most memorable lines in the campaign, like, help the innocent, help yourself to their valuables, I hope. Like, he is just such a good character. He's introduced as this kind of like joke, comic relief character, and then when he finally turns evil, he's a very formidable threat, and he has some of the hardest missions in the game. Like, Waylon Flies Again is one of the most brutal maps in the campaign. So this guy really, at least to me, he stood out as a very memorable CO. But how is he competitively? Waylon is weird. He's not just a little weird, he might be one of the weirdest designs I've ever seen in any Wars game. He is a defensive air CO. That is so strange to think about. His CO zone, sure, it buffs off offense a little bit, but not as much as the other CO's, air CO in this game, Tasha. But what Waylon focuses on is defense. He gives a big boost to defense to air units. And his power amps this up even more. His power is called Wingman, and it buffs the defense of all air units by 300%. Now, if you have just played Advanced Wars 2 and Dual Strike, you may be scratching your head thinking, 300%? That's overkill. But not quite, because defense works very differently in Days of Ruin. It doesn't stack in the same way that defense does in the earlier games. 300% defense just means that his units are a lot more durable, but they're not invincible. To give you an idea, when you pop Wingman, an anti-air will deal around 20 to 25% damage to your battlecopters, and I think about 20%, I think like 15% to bombers. So his air units become almost unkillable, but they can go down with enough concentrated fire. It's not like you'll just deal 0% damage to them. I think Days of Plague described it very well. He's like one of the best Days of Ruin players in the world. He said, it's like Samurai Spirit, but in the air. And there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this power. Not only are your air units hard to shoot down, you can be incredibly reckless with them. You can also use them to wall. That's not something you ever think about with air units. I mean, if the enemy doesn't have anti-air, sure, but like walling anti-air with battlecopters sounds absolutely ludicrous. Now I will say, Waylon is a little bit buffed on Tiny Wars, the site that I'm playing on. You can see that because he has a little plus over his name. What they did was they reduced his boarding costs from 50 to 30%. That basically means whenever your CO enters a unit, you pay a little bit less compared to the other COs, which is very nice for Waylon. It allows him to board expensive fighters and bombers without completely breaking the bank. And I believe they buffed his defense by 10%. I think it was only 30% in the base game, so he's a little bit buffed here. But I would still not call Waylon a top-tier CO. From what I've heard, he is interesting, but he's not very often picked. But today I want to cast a game that I played recently on Settles as Still Water. This is the map right here. It's a map taken from Advanced Wars by Web. It has a few differences, like these temporary seaports right here are not in Advanced Wars by Web. And instead of pipelines, there's like meteors, which are effectively the same. But I actually have another match that I'd like to cast. Days of Plague sent me a replay. It's a lot higher level though. I want to start off with this one, but if you guys want to see the higher level Waylon match from Days of Plague, if you want to see like a top tier competitive Waylon, then leave a comment just saying you'd like to see it. If we get like 500 likes on this video, then I'll cast it. There you go. I'm trying to boost the Advanced Wars algorithm a little bit on YouTube because it's been suffering lately. So yeah, if you want to see that Waylon match, just let me know. But for now, I'm just going to be casting one of my own games. I'm not very good at Days of Ruin, so apologies for what you're about to see. There's going to be a lot of mistakes in this match. But I picked it because it was a very cool match. There's going to be a lot of Wingman's powers popping off in this replay, and it's actually a Waylon mirror match. My opponent is also Waylon. So you're going to see Waylon a lot. Waylon. We're going to listen to the Waylon's theme for a majority of this cast. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Settles as Still Waters. It's a great map. You start with this little black boat here, or it's not a black boat, it's a gunboat. You can only transport one infantry. But you can transport infantry from these harbors right here to these shoals. So you have kind of like three fronts going on. You have like one big front in the middle. You got one little front or 2 fronts in each, or 1 front in each of the corners here. Com towers are important to get in on Tiny Wars. Not only do they give income, but they also boost firepower and defense by 5%. So if both players have com towers, they basically cancel each other out, which is a bit of a different thing to Advanced Wars by Web, but you definitely don't want to... Like, when both have com towers, you don't really feel it. But if you have the com tower and your opponent does not, or even worse, if they get 2 com towers and you have none, it becomes a big uphill battle, because then now they're effectively a 10% firepower and defense boost above you, which is really bad. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I say we get started with this casting right here. Let's see, I think... Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're going to be listening to Waylon's team a lot. So anyway, I am the red player down in the bottom left trunks right here, and my opponent, GM 667, is in the blue trunks over here. So Settles of Stillwater is a pretty slow map. The capture phase of this map is insanely long. There's just a lot of properties to capture. Now, there are a number of things that you can do with this black boat. Or sorry, the gunboat. I'm going to call it black boat a lot. I do apologize for that. You can forego capturing this harbor, and you can rush the properties down here. I think there is some... There are some reasons to do it. But you will struggle with income if you do that. And considering Days of Ruin infantry are 1500, like skipping a property in the early game in Days of Ruin can really mess with you, because you might lose out on an infantry in the early game, which is not what you want. Infantry being 1500 is perhaps one of the biggest things that you have to get used to if you're just used to playing regular Advanced Wars by Web, because it really changes the way that you buy units. Like when I started playing, I would mess up all the time, because I thought infantry were 1k, and so I'd have like 2005, and I'd be like, you know, I can buy 3 infantry or 2 infantry, and no, you can't. You can only buy a 1. Very, very annoying. Here I'm using the gunboat right here, moving it onto the harbor. I'm gonna use it to transport infantry and start capturing over here. But my opening in this matter, one of the reasons why I wanted to cast this game is because I did a very funny opener, and it kind of worked a little bit. I'll show you once it happens. So my opponent he's building a lot of bikes, and this is also another thing that I find tricky whenever I play Days of Ruin, is when do you build infantry, when do you build bikes? Because the bikes are, of course, a lot more expensive. They cost 2,500 instead of 1,500. So they're almost twice as much expensive as an infantry. They do have a move of 5, so they can reach properties that infantry cannot. But there's also like forests, which greatly slow them down. And I find it very hard to understand when to build bikes and when to build infantry, because I find that whenever I build too many bikes, I just don't have enough money for vehicles, and I just get overrun. They're a very greedy unit, in a sense. They are good against enemy infantry, so they're good at interrupting caps. But if you build too many bikes, you might not have enough vehicles to stop the enemy, and if your enemy charges in with a tank, then it can really ruin your day. But you can see I'm only building infantry here. I don't know if I agree with that. But both of us just using our... Oh my goodness, my opponent built so many bikes. I'm not building any bikes. This is actually the first time I look at the replay of this game. I finished it yesterday. So the game is still pretty fresh in my mind. It took about a week to finish. But it's very interesting here. So here I do what I think everyone should do when they face off against Waylon or Tasha. You know, build an anti-air first. Build anti-air instead of tank, because your opponent is so likely to go battlecopter first with the CO unit that it's probably best to just get that anti-air out anyway. Now my opponent is actually way slower at capturing the airport than I am. I actually already have the airport captured. But it probably is not something you need to rush. And he actually goes Flare. Because Flare and Recon. Very strange opener right here. I mean, I don't think this is like a top tier opponent or anything, because I'm certainly not a top tier player. But opening up Recon and Flare is interesting. Flare is such a cool unit in Days of Ruin. It allows you to like scout from a distance. You can reveal hiding places in forests and stuff like that. And they can also be used to kill infantry. They're actually very competent. But I'm moving out with my anti-air right here. I'm gonna see if I can catch a battlecopter unaware. But then I decided to do something silly, and this was kind of a spur-of-the-moment thing. I didn't really plan it out. But I'm going to start to save up a lot of money. Because I have a funny idea. You might already be knowing what I'm thinking about. So my opponent builds his first tank. I will say this about Days of Ruin. Tank spam is less prevalent in this game, especially in Fog. It's a lot more bikes, recons. Battlecopters are very strong in Days of Ruin. Tanks are still good, don't get me wrong. They're still the bread and butter of your army. But I feel like there's less tank spam in Days of Ruin overall. You can't just build tanks. Your opponent will build an anti-tank at some point and wreck you. So I actually kind of like that. There's a lot of things about Days of Ruin that I really like a lot. But if you look at my income right now, I'm saving up pretty hard. I banked up 10,000 funds. Got myself trapped on one of the infantry right here. Days of Ruin cities, of course, are hidden in the fog. They're like forests, very strong. To make up for it, though, they only have 2 defense stars. This is another thing I really like about Days of Ruin. I actually really like that cities are not 3 defense stars, because it means that 2 infantry can always one hit KO an enemy infantry on a city, and 2 of your tanks can always 1-hit KO enemy tanks on cities. It's actually very nice that you don't have to get that 20% firepower boost to make that happen. I really appreciate it. I think the designers of Days of Ruin fundamentally understood a lot of things about Advanced Wars and how it's played. You can tell that by the changes that they made to the game, which is why I'm so sad this game didn't do better. So my opponent finally deploys his Battlecopter. He's definitely going to load his CO unit into that Battlecopter. Whenever you go up against Waylon or Tasha, you can be absolutely sure that your opponent is most likely going to board their CO unit into a Battlecopter. There's not really a whole lot that makes sense otherwise. But, ladies and gentlemen, look at my current funds. So I kill this infantry right here to go and grab the city for myself. I use the black boat, and do I actually do it here? No, I think I wait one more turn. Nope. I actually do deploy the fighter. So I deployed the fighter, ladies and gentlemen, on day 9. What's my rationale for this? Well, I know that my opponent is going to load his CO unit into a... I know that my opponent's going to load his CO into a Battlecopter. So I'm thinking if I load myself into a fighter, I can probably shoot it down. And there's probably going to be a second Battlecopter, maybe even a third. So this fighter is very mobile. And if you look at the defenses that it has right now, well, you won't see it yet because I haven't loaded in my unit. Just you wait what happens once I load Waylon into that fighter. It's going to become an absolutely amazing unit, because when you load a CO unit into a unit, not only do you boost it, but you also rank it up to max rank. So look at this Battlecopter right here. 50% firepower, 70% defense. That is quite ridiculous. So don't get me wrong, Anti-Air will still shoot it down, but they won't one-shot it. I think they'll deal... Actually kind of curious. I think I can do a... I'm not very good at Days of Ruin. Like, I don't know how to bring up the damage calculator, but I'm pretty sure an anti-air will do less than half, I think, against a Waylon Battlecopter. Or maybe a little bit over 50%. So it still cripples it, but it doesn't kill it, which is very nice. But yeah, here you go. This is the fighter I was talking about. So 50% firepower, 70% defense. This fighter will not only be very hard to shoot down with anti-air, but it will one-shot even a Battlecopter with Waylon inside it. So I'm trying to move into the center right here. Go for an interrupt. And I build another Battlecopter because, of course, you know, I'm Waylon. I do need air units. Get myself trapped with my recon right here. So let's see what my opponent decides to do this turn. He moves out with his Battlecopter. Black Boat is going back to fetch some units. He has an artillery on the way right here, and a tank in the center. I have no tanks yet, I think. Yeah, he's kind of wrecking my infantry on the left flank right here. I have no vehicles to counteract that recon and tank. So that's definitely not great for me. I do have a recon of my own, but it's not really going to do a whole lot against the tank. I think that was probably really reckless, moving the recon in like that. I don't know why I didn't attack from this side. That's really stupid of me. If I just attacked from this side, it would have been out of range of the tank. So yeah, I don't think I was really paying attention there. that pretty much will cost me a recon. So, big mistake for me right off the bat right here. I hide my anti-air on the city. And I get a little cheeky trying to capture his cities as well. And here I decide to start building mechs. Because I'm thinking, okay, I do have a gunboat that can transport them over here, and I might be able to use the mechs to ward away his vehicles. Mechs are pretty good in Days of Ruin. They're only 2,500, which is considerably cheaper. So they're actually built a lot in competitive Days of Ruin. Like, when I watch like top-level replays, I see a lot of mechs being built, which is kind of interesting. So, let's see what my opponent decides to do. Yep, there we go. Battlecopter interrupts my capture. Tank takes down my recon. Yeah, I don't really know why I went for that capture either. That was never gonna work. Recon goes bye-bye, and he's ranking up a lot of his units right now. They're getting kills. Rank 1 is not that scary. It's only 5% firepower. Rank 2 is only 10%, but once you get to rank 3, it's 20% firepower in defense. It's a huge boost. You really want to try and get there with your units. It's really nice. But, ladies and gentlemen, his battlecopter is in range of my fighter. And I'm able to see it. Because anti-air has 3 vision in Days of Ruin. Very interesting. Anti-air are buffed in Days of Ruin. They're very strong. Not only are they 1,000 funds cheaper, but they have 3 visions. They have as much vision as tanks, which I actually really like. It means, again, you can really tell that the developers of Days of Ruin tried to tone down the tank spam. I mean, you still have a lot of tanks, obviously, because they're still the bread and butter of Advanced Wars, but I really like that the anti-air is more of a support unit now with its 3 vision. Just little things like this. I really like it. I really like it. But yeah, boom. One shot. So I was so happy when I saw this. I was like, oh my god, my strategy worked. I killed a CO unit with a fighter. Now, of course, it's still quite the heavy investment, 20k, but there will be more air units for it to shoot down, so I think that's fine. So this air unit, this anti-air is actually really doing well for itself. Now, I do have to send some battlecopters up here to get these tanks away. My opponent actually has no anti-air. None. Which is kind of surprising, considering he's up against Waylon, but I think maybe he thinks there might be some mind games going on here. He might think that I'm spamming tanks, because I know that he will be spamming anti-air. So he spams tanks, thinking that I'll spam tanks, or maybe one anti-air. Again, lots of mind games with Waylon, because if you overbuild anti-air, you lose, but if you underbuild anti-air, you definitely lose. So, I don't know, I think he's taking a big gamble here, and it's definitely not going to pay off, I think. But, yeah, I actually built a second gunboat, but I kind of mess up, and I don't move my infantry so I get a unit on this turn, but I just actually decided to build a second gunboat, because my idea right now is I'm going to be spamming a lot of mechs and try to just hold off his vehicle assault as best as I can with cheap, cost-effective mechs. So right now, my opponent has no air units that he can load his CO into. So things are looking okay for me, well, except for the fact that I'm bleeding infantry on the left flank. And my opponent uses a flare to scout out the battlecopter right here, which is very nice. And I'd say he's doing... Oh, there we go. He gets a nice tank shot. I think I was way reckless with this anti-air right now, and my tank count is so low. I haven't built a single tank yet, by the way. I have not built a single tank yet, and that's actually a problem, because you need tanks. You can't just ignore tanks. I will also say, I think that I should probably have just headed left with my fighter, because having the CO zone here with my battlecopters would have helped immensely in building up my CO power. The fighter isn't really doing anything over here. The CO zone does buff infantry a little bit, 10%. But I don't think there's really any point of keeping him around. And my opponent has actually built missiles. Don't get me wrong, missiles are still memes in Days of Ruin, but they're actually a lot better. They buffed them quite considerably. I think... Don't know if there's a way to bring up, like... Ah, actually there is. So, missiles. They're still 12k, that's probably what I dislike about them the most. However, I believe they buffed their range, or I'm actually not sure, 3 to 6? I think they used to have 3 to 5. They still have the 5 vision, but they have 5 movement now, which is, you know, a little bit better than 4. But they buffed missiles, or at least they made an attempt to buff missiles, which I actually like, and I actually think my opponent did the right thing here. I think building a missile against Waylon is actually a good idea. Because there's going to be a lot of air units flowing around. If you put that thing in a city, it is very well protected, and you can lock down a big area of the map. But here I finally decide to move Waylon over to the left-hand side here to try and buff my battlecopters. I really want to try and build up my power. I'm already at 10 energy. You need 60 to pop your power. But at 30, your CO zone will grow by 1 space, which is very nice. So let's see what my opponent decides to do right here. Moves out his missile. Uses the flare to scout a little bit. And I really don't know what I'm doing over here. I'm not really committing to this attack. I shouldn't really attack unless I'm willing to commit. I'm kind of spreading myself a little too thin here. Losing a bit too many infantry for my liking. But let's see what we can do. Again, if I had moved Waylon last turn, I probably could have had both of these copters within my CO range. And that would have been really good for me, because he still doesn't have any anti-air. He has anti-air on the way, but it's still very far away. So here I'm just taking some infantry engagements. There's still no air units threatening this fighter. And I kept myself trapped on a bike. I was so frustrated about this, because I was going to put the fighter over here to buff my battlecopters. I didn't realize he had actually put a bike in the forest, so I got myself trapped, and I feel like an absolute dumbass. Because, you know, you're just flying in your fighter jet, and then suddenly you have to stop because there's spikes underneath you. You know, that's just Advanced Wars in a nutshell. But my opponent is doing a good job interrupting most of my captures. He also has 2 comm towers right now, which is something I talked about at the start of this match. So all of his units have a 10% buff to firepower and defense, which makes things very hard for me. I need to capture this comm tower ASAP. I cannot let him do that. And he moves in another battlecopter with Waylon inside it. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, wow, really? Interesting. He's just going to give me another CO unit. But, yeah, he's just going to give me another CO unit. He even has a rocket on the way. Yeah, I think rockets... Yeah, rockets are 3 to 5. Missiles are 3 to 6. Yeah, they're definitely buffed. So I was like, oh, hell yeah. I used my own flare to scout. I sadly take these engagements outside of my CO zone, so they do not give me energy at the moment. But I am able to kill his CO unit again, which I am very happy about. I am running a little bit low on fuel, though, 33 fuel. I probably should have built a rig a lot sooner. I delete my own gunboat on the HQ because I'd like to put a unit on there. But I've also built a bomber. Bombers are hilarious to use when you're Waylon, because you pop your wingman and that bomber ain't going down. So you can have a lot of fun with these. But I really need to capture. I join cap, and I get myself trapped. Man, I got myself trapped a lot in this game, didn't I? But my battlecopters are wreaking havoc. My opponent still doesn't have anti-air. Imagine if Waylon was like here at the moment. I would have had my wingman already. I would have had my power already if I had just moved him sooner. But, you know, hindsight is 20/20. So my opponent actually loads Waylon into a Duster this time around. Dusters are interesting units. They're like mini fighters. The 13k is quite expensive. They're almost as expensive as a fighter. And they're certainly not the strongest one, but they can still deal some nice damage, especially if you have your CO inside of them. I think Duster is... I don't know if you can really fight my fighter with that. I think it's going to be tough. But my CO unit is way too far behind enemy lines right now. I really need to evacuate Waylon ASAP. And once again, my opponent did such a good job interrupting this comm tower. We sat on it for a big majority of the match, and it's actually hurting me a lot right now in every engagement I make. It's just a little hard. Like, it's like I'm playing Fumbolt, really, with 10% extra firepower and defense. Now, he does put his rocket way too far in the open right here, which allows me to take a shot with a battlecopter within the CO zone, so I'm now at 29... No, 41 energy, so 20 more energy left. And I kill another... This one was a bit of a... I should not have done this. I am outside of range of the missile, but there is a Duster right here. And I think anti-air in range as well, so this one's gonna hurt, I think. I reached 54 energy, and I thought maybe the defense buff would let me survive whatever came this way, but no, that CO unit is definitely going to die now, I think. So I'm being a little... I'm taking his baits. And, oh, I've just realized that just moving range of a missile as well. I didn't even see that. Yeah, so, yeah, I definitely took the bait. I was way too trigger happy here. I should have known that was too good to be true. Played like an absolute idiot. But then again, you know, I am Waylon after all. Flight of the Coward. Actually, yeah, I should have played more like Waylon and run away. This is not how you're supposed to play Waylon. I get punished for it, you know? I'm being brave or stupid. That's not what Waylon would do. So let's see how quickly this thing goes down. So Duster versus Fighter, 6-7. Yeah, that sounds about right. But the missile still destroys my CO unit. So yeah, no, I stupid me, should not have done that. However, I do have 3 bombers on the way. So the dream of getting the wingman is still very real, and this missile shoots down another battlecopter. It has 2 missiles, actually, which is crazy. And this is what I was talking about, the flare. The flare gun is actually very good against infantry. It's comparable to recons. It's a very strong unit. For only 1,000 more, you get a unit that can kind of do what the recon does. It's a very strong unit. But yeah, my opponent is cleaning me up right now. And I still haven't taken back the comm tower. However, I do have 3 bombers on the way, and my opponent has some dusters and some anti-air, but these bombers are still going to be very scary. So, both of us very low on CO charge at the moment. But at long last, I start to play a little bit defensively here. It's about time. I've been playing like a reckless moron the whole match. Let's see what my opponent decides to do here. He's playing pretty recklessly with these 2 tanks. I think we're both playing really recklessly in this game. Again, this flare has gotten so much mileage. It's just constantly revealing units around here. A flare in a city is a very solid investment if you can keep it there. My opponent has also built a rig. Rigs are very nice because it allows you to build temporary airports, which can help Waylon a lot. Air units, you run out of fuel fast in Advanced Wars Days of Ruin, and you really want to get at least 1 temporary airport up in the center so you can go and refuel. But it's time, yes, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do. But I'm being a little bit cheeky with this airport. This is like on the front lines. I really should have been building it back here instead. So I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm being very reckless. However, I am ranking up my bombers, which is nice. But I really need to get that damn comm tower. My opponent is still sitting on it and it's hurting me. So let's see, we're in day 19 right now. It's a long match. It's a very long match. My opponent is now building fighters. The flare gun is rank 2. It's not something you see every day. And he will not let me take this comm tower. I probably should shift my focus. Like, this comm tower is wide open, but of course I didn't know this at the time. And he also interrupts the building of the rig. Again, this was just very cheeky by me. I love how the defense values updates when your HP goes down, by the way. I love it. But yeah, I should have built a rig, like, I should have built the airport, like, here or here. Really reckless to try and build it so far up on the front lines. Not a good idea. But I still have... Ooh, and there goes my rig. Yeah, he killed it. So let's see, ladies and gentlemen. I still have 3 bombers. And one of them is rank 2. Starting to get real scary. I don't know what I'm doing here. So, Umpire goes down. Flare goes down. Battlecopter goes down. Or almost down. I need to be careful here. There's a missile. I know there's a missile here somewhere. But in that turn, I earned myself 20 energy, which is kind of nice. I'm only 10 energy away from expanding my CO zone once again. Man, look at that. A max rank flare gun. It's killed 3 infantry. Oh my goodness. I really should have built more vehicles on this side. Day 20, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. We have 2 missiles moving out. My opponent is still sitting on that comm tower. Kills my anti-air, and I think in gonna come a fighter now. Who is he going to attack with it? Oh no, he does not move in. Wow, I think he must have thought I had a missile or something here. He's playing very cautiously. But my opponent does have his power ready right now. So I need to be very careful. Let's see what I decide to do this turn with my 3 bombers. Tried to capture the harbor. I killed a meteor, and I was very surprised when I killed this meteor. I remember the plasma vanishing when you destroy meteors on the cartridge. I think that's how it used to work. But here, the meteor vanishes, but the plasma remains behind, which I was very surprised when I saw that. That's not how I remember Days of Ruin meteors working. Leave a comment if you agree with me. I don't think that's how they're supposed to work. I think the plasma surrounding the meteor should vanish. But that's how they chose to do it, I guess. But yeah, I'm sensing that he's going to be popping a wingman, so I pull back. I should have pulled back a lot more. This is super reckless right here. These units should have been pulled back here. Yeah, I was not playing this well. But my opponent has wingman available right now, and I think he's going to pop it. There we go. He pops wingman, so that's his CO zone has now become global, so it affects every unit on the map. And his air units, take a look at this. 320 defense. 320 defense. 320. So it means that any attack against this air units this turn is not going to work. Or it's going to be not very effective at all. There you go. And he still has those rockets and missiles. So let's see. I will say, though, this is a very unspectacular wingman. He didn't really do anything with it. I think he should have sat on it for a turn. But look at this. Look at this. Anti-air versus a fighter. 1 HP of damage. Look at this. Hardly takes any damage at all. But yeah, he played... I don't know why he played that so defensively. He could have just charged in with everything on this turn. I wouldn't have been able to do anything to his air units. They can just pop wingman for the hell of it. And I almost have my wingman ready right now. But you know what I don't have? A damn comm tower. That's what I don't have. But yeah, he's playing super carefully. But that, honestly, probably the right thing to do at the moment. So he doesn't want to throw away his units. I do think I get my power this turn, if I'm not completely mistaken. But he has a big unit lead over me right now, 32 units to 25. And there's still no signs of me getting back that comm tower. I really should have focused all of my attention on this comm tower. It was wide open all along. I didn't know at the time, but I shoot down the fighter, and boom! I get a wingman of my own. Not really capitalizing on it as much as I could, though. Like, I only have 2 bombers. But it means that those 2 bombers will not take damage this turn. So, it's a nice little counterattack. I come in with a fighter, and I almost kill a CO unit. I think I could have killed a CO unit this turn if I'd played a little bit better. That would have been huge. So, I may have a bomber on the front lines right now with 7 HP, but look how hard it is for him to kill it. Duster, 6 HP. Missile, 3 HP. And he still doesn't kill it. It goes down to 2 HP. So Wingman is quite a force to be reckoned with. It makes your CO unit nigh indestructible. Kinda bonkers. Now, my bombers are low in fuel and ammo. I really need to refuel them quickly. 2 shots left on this guy. 0 shots left on this guy. I do have a rig on the way. But I really should have set up that temporary airport a lot sooner. I should have set it up in a more careful location. So that was a nice little counterattack. I'm building a rig once again. I think I'm building it too far, though. I should have built it probably here, behind the forest, for a little bit of cover. Man, I'm so reckless this turn. Oh my goodness. I saw a missile and I went for it immediately. And little did I know, there's another missile waiting for me. And I have to put my CO unit next to the rig, otherwise it's going to crash. So yeah, wow, I sure played this recklessly. Looking back at this replay, I had no idea he had so much stuff. Well, let's see what GM decides to do on this turn. Yeah, he did a good job interrupting the capture. He goes for my CO unit again. He's not going to be able to kill it, though. But he's marching forward. Again, he has a surprising lack of anti-air, I will say. Like, I'm very surprised he didn't build more anti-air. They're so good in Days of Ruin. Like, there's no way this bomber should have lived. This bomber should have died. Me putting it that far behind enemy lines. And he actually loads the CO unit into an anti-air, which I didn't even realize he did this. That's really funny. I don't really think it's what you should do, though, with Waylon. I think you should just load it into a Duster or Fighter. It's just, you don't get the boosts in the anti-air the same way you get it. It just becomes a 40-40. But a Fighter becomes a 70-50. So I don't agree with that move, but I mean, he's winning this, so he can kind of do whatever he wants. Yeah, at this point, I'm starting to focus a little bit more on the right flank. I realize I can't really get much done in the middle, and I'm already at 41 energy, so I'm already charging up for my next wingman. But once again, I leave a couple of stragglers a little bit too far away. I should really focus all my units around the CO zone. And there's no way these... Like, I'm sending so many mechs to their deaths up here, too. You need a lot more mechs than that for it to be effective. At the moment, they're just getting picked off one by one. So just cannon fodder, really. But yeah, we are on day 25, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm still hanging in there. I thought I was a lot more ahead than I was at this point. Looking at the replay, I'm definitely losing this. I've been losing this for the past 5 days or so. But you know, when you play Fog of War, it's sometimes very hard to know how well you're doing. I thought we were pretty evenly matched in this game. Yeah, already we have another wingman charged up. It is ready to be popped next turn if I want to. And this time around, I do actually have a lot of air units to work with, at least before I lost my Duster. And I almost lose my CO unit again. Look at that. He has a max rank missile, ladies and gentlemen. That missile's been feasting good this entire game. That missile has been really cost-effective. How often do you see a cost-effective missile in Advanced Wars? Still not able to take down my CO unit. 1 HP left on the bomber. And I decide, this is where I'm like, oh, I'm going to turn this match around. I got a wingman. I was like, I'm doing well. Spoiler alert, I was not doing well. And I should have moved a hell of a lot further back than here, because I'm still in range of the missile. I don't think I even realized there was a missile there. Should have had a flare. I should have had a flare like he had. I should have had a flare like right here for a majority of the match. And here I see the missile, and this is where I realized I'd screwed up, because here's the thing. I could go for the missile, but I thought there was a unit in this forest. I was sure there was a unit in this forest. There wasn't. I should have killed the missile, but I didn't. And here's a little fun fact about powers in Days of Ruin. You can interrupt them. That's right. You can interrupt a power that's already been popped. How do you do that? Well, quite simple. You just destroy the CO unit while the power is active. Boom. And the CO power immediately vanishes. I kind of like this about Days of Ruin. It certainly allows you to do counters to powerful CO powers. If your opponent messes up, that is. Most of the time, they'll withdraw their CO unit pretty far in the back, and they should. But if you don't do this, then you can punish it, like my opponent did right here. And once I saw that I lost my air unit, I knew it was over. I thought we were a lot more evenly matched, but looking at the replay right now, my opponent is way ahead of me in income, 35k to my 21k. He's got a huge unit count lead as well. And I'm pretty sure I resign this turn, if I'm not completely mistaken. Maybe I play one more turn, but at this point, I definitely realize it is over. I think I just take a few pokes, seeing if I can make any kind of counterplay. No, actually, I play another turn. Interesting. Huh. But yeah, like, look at that missile. Look at that missile. Even the CO unit showing up right here. Yeah, I'm getting my ass kicked right here. So this was definitely not a well-played game by me, but I had fun playing it. It was fun, I think, to showcase some of Waylon's insanity. I will say, I don't think my opponent really capitalized all that well in his first wingman. I think my wingmans were a lot better, but my play wasn't that great, so... There you go. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was my Waylon game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I wish we got some kind of victory music playing here. Ah, there you go. You can actually change the music. That's nice to know. But yeah, that was a Waylon match. Definitely not the highest level Waylon play you're gonna ever see, but I hope you enjoyed it regardless. And again, give me 500 likes and I'll cast that pro Waylon game to show you how a real player plays. Looking forward to hearing your comments on this match. Let me know what you think about Waylon as a CO. Do you think he's a weird CO? Do you think he's a good CO? Have you had any luck playing him yourself? Do you think Days of Ruin just had better ideas? I think it did, actually. Anyway, guys, my name's Mangs. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Take care.